is made for a theatrical experience. It's such a theatrical event. It is a sound movie. You want to be sitting with strangers jumping and screaming and not eating your popcorn. And I think that was always what we saw for this. And I think certainly with this film, as much as the first one, but this one especially, the world expands, as the Abbott family have to leave their decimated farm, and she's there with a newborn baby and these other two kids, she's desperately trying to keep them alive. The world expands, and so the set pieces are bigger, and it's so thrilling. I'm so excited for people to see it. Well, I think John was always really inspired by the idea of, we know how the Abbott family fared in the first film. They were in almost quite an insular, protected safe haven that gets completely destroyed when Evelyn goes into labor and has a baby in a bathtub. So I think, and then now she's in this place where they figured out how to kill them. So that's a big, hopeful thing. But she's got a brand new baby who doesn't understand the rules of the game. So you have a newborn baby who's a horror tool in itself. And she has these two beautiful children. How does she keep them alive? Where does she go? What does she do? Who will help her? And the idea of, we saw how the Abbott family did in the first movie, but John was like, how did everyone else fare? How was everyone else affected by this world? How are they living? And he was so interested in that. So I think that was why the world has to expand. It's a sequel, so it's got to get a bit bigger. And yet I do feel it's still got the emotionality of the first one. We made the first one without the intention of wanting to do a sequel. So John always liked it being open-ended. And then when the movie came out and it had this sort of meteoric life that was really unexpected and thrilling, obviously, for us, I think we didn't anticipate such an investment in the family or in the world and a desire to see what other mileage you could get out of that world, And I think John had like 30 pitches that came at him. They brought in writers because he was kind of reluctant to write it and do it. And then all of a sudden, I remember a couple of months later, we were in Hawaii. I was shooting a movie in Hawaii. And he suddenly just goes, I have an idea. And that was it. And he pitched me the opening. And I was like, we gotta make this movie. It was just so good. It was undeniable. They're such a couple of powerhouses, the two of them. And there's that theory that you should never work with children. It's so wrong with these kids. They saved us time. They would get it in one take and John would be like, okay, I guess we move on. I mean, it was like perfect. It was like, they're so arresting and clever and nice, easy, just great parents, great families. They are like our fake children. So I'm so devoted to them and I love them. And I think it's important for people to see, especially Millicent's character, this really becomes her film. There's a real handoff that takes place. This is her movie. And I think John always felt that was appropriate for the symbolism of really the world that we are leaving our children. Like, how are they going to handle it? How are they going to save us? And ultimately, they will be the ones to save us. The premise is very simple, right? You can wrap your arms around the idea of if you make noise, you're dead. Super simple. Everyone goes, I get that. Instantly frightening if you set it up right, as John did. But I think it has great heart. And I think he recognized as well simple, quite domestic things like doing laundry and then the nail comes up on the step. It's a nail in a step and it filled people with dread because you've set up that they don't wear shoes and you've set like really simple tools of horror. A pregnant woman, she's going to give birth at some point. Every woman alive knows you can't give birth silently, or if you can, then I have no idea how you do it. But I think that you've got these quite simple, quite domestic tools that were really easy for people to associate themselves in that environment with, I mean, I'm going to put the pressure all on John. I was kind of like, I know you can do it, But I think he did feel an immense sense of pressure, but I think John quite likes working like that. I think he operates very well if there's a bit of a, gun to his head on something. I think he doesn't mind it. And I just said to him beforehand when he was slightly agonizing about how do I match it, I said, don't match it. Don't try and outdo it. The story's continuing. It's just a continuation. Like, so what happens? What do you want to see them do? But I think he went above and beyond, and he is a bit of a sort of creative hurricane. So I knew he'd be able to come up with something great. And then we had the incredible Cillian Murphy coming in and just crushing it for us as well. Do you know, it is quite quiet, because I think the mistake the crew made sometimes is like, oh, it's a silent movie. And we're like, no, you guys have to be even quieter, like, because you can hear everything. You can hear absolutely everything. So if someone's walking around or moving or eating, you can hear it in the background of the shot, because the sound department are trying to record everything, like picking up a teacup, like what does that sound like? And like they've got the mic on it so that you can, it's so real, you know. So we'd always be like, I'd hear John go, guys, it's not a silent movie, it's a sound movie. It's like, please, you know. So yeah, but then we would try and have some levity between takes. Like, it's such an intense movie, so Cillian and I would have a laugh between takes, and we'd just try and release the tension, you know, because it's intense. It's an intense movie. I love going to the movie theatre. It's my favorite thing to do. We do it all the time, and I just love being encompassed and consumed by an experience. I love the dark and the energy in the room and the space between people, and I think it's the best. It's the best date night ever. It's one of my favorite things to do, and it always will be.
I just think that this movie is so uniquely primed for the theater. We designed it completely to be a theatrical experience, and mostly due to the sound experience that you can have. Clearly, our movie is reliant on sound, both from the creature standpoint and the human standpoint. And so we really, in this movie, tried to push the boundaries even more of what we did with sound and actually put you in the movie and make you feel like you were a part of this terrifying experience. So I think we, from a preparedness, we've been waiting for a year to come out, so we're ready to be one of the first ones out. And I think from a movie making standpoint, we are a theatrical experience all the way. And so I think this is one of those movies that you go to the theater to see, and so we're lucky to be one of the ones that will bring you to the theater. The biggest difference between the first movie and the second movie is that the second movie is much bigger, not only from a production standpoint. It's a much bigger movie. It's a much scarier movie. It's a much wider experience. You get to experience many more things because the family that you know from the first movie has to venture out into the real world. And so as the world gets bigger, so does our movie. But I think we also got to play with all the things that we really loved about the first one, and hopefully the audience loved about the first one, like pushing barriers with sound, pushing barriers on new and more unique action sequences or scare sequences, and it's also we've gotten to open up the world a little more. We have a more diverse cast, a bigger cast, a lot more stories being told. So we have that ace in the hole. At first, I actually had no intention of doing a sequel. In fact, the studio had asked whether or not I would do a second one, and I said, I don't think I'm your person. I think you should go find someone else. And the reason why was very simple. That first movie was so unbelievably personal to me. As bizarre as it sounds looking at the poster, the first movie was a love letter to my kids. And that's the reason why I decided if I could explore that idea more, then I would love to do a sequel. And so what I mean by that is if the first movie is about the promises you make to your kids that you'll always be there, the second movie is about when that promise is inevitably broken, which I believe is what growing up is all about. So these kids who had such a stable ecosystem of support always now have to fend for themselves. And I think there's a real organic parallel to real life in that. And these kids are going out into a very unique world all alone, and yet they still manage to impress every single person with their courage, with their bravery, and with their belief systems of believing in other people when really they have no reason to believe in other people. They still believe in community. They still believe in the hopeful ending to this story, and so we go along with the ride with them. I think a lot of times sequels have to be bigger just by nature, because if the first movie was a success, the second movie has to be bigger, which is not at all the way we went into it. We had to make it bigger only because the family left such an intimate space and went out into the world. And so when you go out into the world, what was really exciting in our specific movie is that when they go out into the world, they have no idea what's around the corner. So that is what we leaned into, that they have to walk through a forest to get to their next livable situation, or they won't survive. Every single step of the way could be the end of life as they know it. And so I think that's the expansion that we went, is an organic idea of how do you survive when you have nothing left, and how do you cope with with being dealt such an emotional blow as losing the father and also in a way the protector of the whole family. In expanding the story, we got to play with new characters and have newer cast members, and there is it was so exciting because, first off, all the cast members that we added were big fans of the first movie, which was such an honor to me, seeing as though the level of actors that we had, like Jaimin and like Killian and Scoot McNairy, who comes in for a small part in the movie, which was killer. We just had people who were ready to play in this sandbox. And we knew that the best thing we had from the first movie, we never knew it would be successful. We knew it would be unique. We knew that it was a different experience. And it's a sandbox that you want to play in. I think that most franchises have a hero and a villain, and each movie you just create a new world around them, but it's the same dynamics. And for us, it's the exact opposite. We have such a amazingly lush world of sound and terror and fear and all these things that you can put any character you want in. And I think they have to live through this situation that the family that you love from the first one has to live through. So getting to play with new characters, but certainly these actors, to have that level of talent, like Killian and like Jaimin and like Scoot coming in, they were so immediately part of the family. They were so immediately collaborative. They were so immediately game for whatever I would put them through, whether it was running in bare feet or throwing them into scary, deep, dark places, both literally and figuratively. And to have these actors come in and immediately be part of the vibe, immediately be part of the family experience, was so unbelievably lucky for us, but also really genuinely beneficial to the movie, because we were able to do whatever we wanted because they felt like they were somehow a part of the first movie right from the beginning. I'm so excited to show this movie to everyone, but selfishly from our standpoint, just because we've been you make a movie, you want people to see it, so we've been waiting for a really long time to show people. But from the outside perspective looking in, it's just, I think, a great experience and a great opportunity to escape. It's a world that I think can really take you out of your everyday life and just take you to some place new where you get to experience great characters in a great world and be scared and have all these thrills, and then take a breather and go back to your life. And I think that it's something that only the theater can really offer to you. I think being in a dark room with strangers, as many times as you hear it, it really is true. There's something very communal about that experience. There's something very powerful about that experience. And certainly our movie was specifically designed for the theatrical experience. So for all those reasons, selfish and otherwise, I'm really excited for people to see the movie. I'm as stereotypical as it gets as far as the theater experience. I have to have a popcorn and soda within 30 seconds of entering that building, or this experience is not going to go well. I genuinely feel that I go back to being a kid. There's something magical about that room when you go in to a dark room with strangers and watch something together. There's something connective that you can't really explain. And I think that for me, my movie experience is grabbing the popcorn, grabbing the soda, going in, and watching the trailers is still one of my favorite things. I think knowing that you are a part of this experience, that certainly our business, we don't just make movies, we make movies because people want to see them. And so the trailer experience and getting excited for the movies that come around. I mean, one of my favorite things about what's going on right now is it makes our business a team sport. I don't think there's any movie that's supposed to come out this year that doesn't want every other movie to succeed. And that's really exciting. So we're so excited to be one of the first movies to come out, but we are by no means anything but that. We hope to be one of the first steps that all these other movies get to come in behind and really bring everybody back to the theater and bring everybody back to the movies.
Where's the buzz? Where is the buzz? You said was mine.